All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today we are going way, way back. I'm talking more than 5,000 years to explore the world's very first civilization, Mesopotamia.
So let's dive right in. How did we, as a species, go from being hunter-gatherers just focused on survival to building cities and writing laws? It all started with a really profound question. Is there more to life than just staying alive? And that one question, well, it kicked off one of the greatest journeys in all of human history.
Okay, so our story begins with a journey. Early humans are on the move, migrating out of Africa, and then they stumble upon this incredible piece of land, a place so fertile it would literally change everything for our species, forever.
And this place, we know it today as Mesopotamia. If you look at a map, it covers parts of modern-day Iraq, Syria, and Turkey. The name itself is Greek, and it means the land between two rivers. And those two rivers, the Tigris and the Euphrates, they were the secret sauce, the lifeblood that made everything else possible.
See, every year these rivers would flood, and when the water receded, it left behind the super rich soil. And that led to one of the biggest inventions ever, agriculture. For the very first time, people weren't just finding food, they were making it. They figured out how to grow barley and wheat and dates. This was a total game changer. It meant you didn't have to wander around anymore. You could stay put. You could build a home. So, once you've got a steady food supply and people are settling down, what comes next? Well, a new dream starts to take shape. People start thinking, hey, maybe we can build something bigger, something more permanent than just a little village.
And that dream led to Uruk. About 5,000 years ago, Uruk becomes humanity's first real megacity. We're talking towering temples, these things called ziggurats, and bustling markets. This was it, the dawn of urban life. And soon other great cities like popped up. This is the moment right here where we stopped just surviving and started creating civilization.
But here's what's really wild. This wasn't just happening in Mesopotamia. At almost the exact same time, thousands of kilometers away, in the Indus Valley, modern-day India and Pakistan, the same thing was happening. You had cities like Mohenjo-Daro with fired brick homes and crazy advanced drainage systems. It's like humanity all over the globe simultaneously decided it was time to level up.
Okay, so you've got cities. What's the next problem you need to solve? Well, with thousands of people living together, you need rules, you need organization, you need leaders. And this, of course, paves the way for the very first empires. And power didn't stay in one place for long. It was constantly shifting. First, you had the Sumerians and their city-states. Then, along comes this guy Sargon of Akkad, who creates the world's first empire. And after them, the Babylonians rise up, and they're the ones who really take this whole civilization thing to its peak. And speaking of the Babylonians, we have to talk about their most famous king, Hammurabi. This guy is a legend because he created something that would echo through history, a complete code of laws to organize everything in his kingdom. I mean everything from business deals to arguments within a family. He laid out 282 specific laws, and he didn't just write them down in some dusty scroll. No way. He had them carved into a giant stone pillar, a stele, and put it right in the middle of the city so that everyone could see them. No excuses for not knowing the law. And the guiding principle behind it all? You've probably heard this phrase, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. It was all about retributive justice. The punishment had to fit the crime, whether it was theft or something as serious as murder. But here's the truly mind-blowing part, the most revolutionary idea in the whole code. It established that the law applied to everybody, even the king. Think about that. This is the birth of the rule of law, the idea that no one is above the law. We're talking 4,000 years ago. It's a concept we're still fighting for in parts of the world today. So, we've talked about kings and laws. But what about the average person? What was it actually like to live back then? You know, what was the social structure? What did you eat? Well, society was definitely structured kind of like a pyramid. At the very top, you had the king and the priests. Below them were merchants and artisans. Then the farmers, who were the backbone of the whole thing. And at the bottom, you had slaves. Now, you might think of something like the Indian caste system, but there was a huge difference. In Mesopotamia, your class was mostly about your job, not who you were born to. So there was at least a chance to move up. And here's something else that might surprise you. Yes, it was a patriarchal society, but women had a surprising number of rights. They could own their own property, they could run their own businesses, marriage was actually a legal contract that protected them. And get this, the world's first known author was a woman. Her name was Enheduanna, and she was the daughter of the great king Sargon. How cool is that?
Okay, so they had farming down, but that wasn't the only thing that made them so prosperous. Their secret weapon? Trade. We're talking about massive, long-distance trade networks.
I mean, this was basically the ancient world's first supply chain. They were getting copper and precious stones like lapis lazuli from Persia, wood and gold from Egypt, and even textiles and spices all the way from the Indus Valley. We know this for a fact because archaeologists have found seals, like little stamps, from the Indus Valley right in the middle of Mesopotamian ruins. It's just incredible. They built a global trade network 5,000 years ago without credit cards or even money as we think of it.
But as the saying goes, all good things must come to an end. And for Mesopotamia, this golden age couldn't last forever. The truly tragic irony is that their downfall was caused by the very thing that gave them life in the first place, those two rivers.
It wasn't a sudden collapse like an asteroid hitting. It was more like a slow, painful death by 1,000 cuts, a cascade of failures. See, all that irrigation, over centuries, slowly built up salt in the soil, eventually making it impossible to grow crops. Then climate change kicked in, bringing long, brutal droughts. And once you have famine and disease, the whole society just starts to rot from the inside.
And once they were weakened like that, they were a sitting duck. The final blows came from outside. First, it was Cyrus the Great of Persia, who marched in and captured Babylon. That was pretty much the end of Mesopotamian independence. Then, a couple of centuries later, Alexander the Great came through and just absorbed what was left into his own massive empire. The world's first great civilization was gone.
So why does this all matter? Because the story of Mesopotamia isn't just a dusty old history lesson. It's a really powerful and kind of scary reminder of this delicate dance between our own cleverness and the limits of our environment. They rose because of innovation, and they fell when they couldn't adapt. And it really makes you stop and think, doesn't it? How well are we managing that exact same balance today?